Well, we'll get started, and if you guys don't mind, we'll have some folks joining us as they come in. I think, like I said, we'll get started. So we've got a large, nice group at home. So I will start from the beginning. I am Jackie Carlin. I'm the Community Education Director here at the Center for Health and Wellbeing. This is one of our fun hybrid food is medicine programs that we're so thrilled to partner with our partners at AdventHealth on. And this month we've got Dr. Patricia Guerrero. I told her I'm not going to go through her whole biography. I'm going to let her do that. But the headline is she not only is an cardiac electrophysiologist. Is that right?
You got it right.
Okay. But what's most important is she is very committed to cardiac health and well-being and really looking at all the lifestyle choices that we make that can help improve our health. So she will be talking about that more and more today. And Allison Harrell, who many of you are familiar with. Allison is a culinary medicine specialist, a registered dietitian, and just one of our favorite folks to have here in the Nutrition Theater, not only for her cooking and nutrition skills, but she teaches us all great kitchen gadgets. I'm looking around to see what new things she's got today. So, what does she have to? Okay, we have our own herb scissors here now because of Allison. So this program works a little different. We've got some folks at home. We've got some folks here in the theater. So for the folks at home, please do use that chat box. Ask your questions. I will be your audience avatar here in the building today, so I will share your questions with our two experts here. So whether it's on disease state, whether it's on a specific ingredient, whether it's on a cooking style, anything is on the board. This is, I'm going to say, because it's all ladies so far, we've got fun ladies in here. It's going to be girlfriends around a table, so ask your questions when you have them. Do not feel like you have to wait to the end. If you don't know something, just speak up, and we'll have a good time throughout it. We also do regular cooking programs. When I say regular, in air quotes, those are just the folks here in the room. Those aren't live streamed. We usually do one every Wednesday. Sometimes it shifts a little bit. We've got tons of really good ones coming up. I'm going to go over to my computer and read a recap in a moment of what we've got, but we've got some good food is medicine ones coming up with Allison over the next couple months as well. We're going to be doing what is it? How are we wording it now? The wholeness, cooking for wholeness with Dr. Ariana Becker, who many of you know from here in the building. We'll have somebody from Rothman Orthopedic here to talk about bone health. Next month, we're doing gut microbiomes. Keller's going to be doing that one with somebody from the TRI, which is the nutritional study people.
I'm doing that one.
The technical term? Oh, you're doing that one.
Yeah.
I thought Colette was. I'm sorry. With Dr. Corbin.
Yeah, with my friend who's also a PhD dietitian, which I love.
They did a really cool study, and that one's going to be live streamed, everybody. I'll put a link in the chat for that as well, because if you can't make that one in person or if the seats are sold out, that'll be another one that's live streamed. A sidebar on that, and then we'll get started. They did a really cool study, I forget how many minutes, where they prepared meals for people to show how it affected their overall health, and it was featured in the New York Times and all these places, and Allison's going to prepare one of the recipes from that study that was so successful. So,
and we also have a breast cancer surgeon coming with us.
Oh, Dr. Sagal, right? Yeah.
To speak another month.
Yeah, so we've got lots of good things coming too. In addition to our cooking, we've got a writing program going right now. So we've got arts classes, writing classes, all sorts of fun things to do here at the Center for Health and Wellbeing. So
why go anywhere else?
Why go anywhere else? Thank you very much. I'm going to make that our tagline. Why go anywhere else?
We got it all.
I'll give a few more plugs for other things, but I'm going to get started. Last housekeeping. Everybody, whether you're watching online or watching here, will get a survey. So please let us know what other cooking styles and programs and diseases and whatever the case may be you want us to do programs for coming up. And make sure our cell phones are off so we don't bother anybody that's in here. And like I said, if you've got questions, when you and folks here in the room answer them, just give them a chance to repeat the questions for those at home can hear, because usually they can't. And Allison's giving me my reminder. I always forget to mention composting. We compost here at the Center for Health and Wellbeing. We work with O-Town Composting to divert thousands of pounds from the landfills every month. It's a great program. If you want to know more about it, let me know, but we're happy to have them as partners here.
I'm a user of Hotel.
Nice. Yeah. So it's a great way to make another small impact on the environment. So without further ado, welcome to Food is Medicine, Cooking for Heart Health. Let's get started.
Okay, I'm going to first go over what we're going to be cooking, and I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Allison Harrell. I'm a registered dietitian with over 25 years experience. I can't believe that. And I did advanced training to become a certified culinary medicine specialist, because I really do believe that the food that we eat really impacts our longevity and our overall health, and that's our mission today, to help you learn what foods are really going to support your heart health and overall well-being. So today we're going to be making a lentil and wild rice soup, and we are also going to be making a heart-healthy salad with a vegan feta cheese. So I really love feta cheese, and I wanted to try and make it in a heart-healthy way. And then we have a dessert hummus that's got peanut butter, chocolate, raspberries. We're gonna dip it in some apples and some pretzels. It's gonna be delicious. And I've collected your email addresses when you come in, and Jackie's gonna put a opt-in in the chat several times through this presentation. I'm going to be sending a heart healthy recipe pack after this is over with the webinar recording. And I do talk a lot about kitchen gadgets. This is one of my favorite things to save time in the kitchen. I never want time to be a barrier to get you in the kitchen and making healthy food. So I will send you my Amazon store link so you can see for yourself how to incorporate that into your cooking and planning. So before I pass it over, I'm just going to get started. I'm going to heat some olive oil in our pan. And this is my first kitchen gadget debut. It's my favorite thing. This is an olive oil container, and you'll see you can squeeze it, and it will measure out exactly what you need. Like, how cool is that? So I'm using the olive oil as a heart healthy fat, and I'm going to coat the pan. And then I'm going to be sauteing my mise en place, which is my celery, onions, and carrots. And to save time in the kitchen, because I prepped this stuff in advance, I didn't want to be chopping a million things yesterday. So I use this chopper. I just cut it, take out my frustrations of my children or my husband, and chop it up. So this is a game changer, okay? This is going to be on my Amazon store. I found this one at Aldi. They're inexpensive. So this I've had for about 2 years. It's starting to fall apart. I bought this one at Aldi, and it was $14. So I'm okay with that. I got my use out of it. So without further ado, I'll pass it on to you so you could share about your amazing experience and more about yourself and talk about heart health.
Thank you. Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Patricia Guerrero. I'm a physician. I'm a cardiac electrophysiologist, which translates into I'm a heart electrician by training. But for AdventHealth, I am also the medical director for cardiovascular wellness and prevention. So my greatest joy comes in trying to identify ways to help people stay healthy or identify heart disease at an early enough stage so that people don't go on to have a decrease to their longevity or to their health because they have heart disease. So it's all about preventing and identifying early and managing our risk factors. So the reason why I am here today representing heart health is because I also am a believer that food is a part of medicine in terms of it can be either nutritious and wholesome, anti-inflammatory, nourishing to our body and our...
I'm going to move this a little closer so folks know how we can
Okay. Oh,
Whoa,
dear.
wow.
Now I really hear myself.
And you could eat it.
Exactly. I think that's what's going to happen.
I'm sorry, I've gotten very close to you all of a sudden.
We're girlfriends here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, try again.
Okay. Can you hear me now? I can hear the echo. Yes. That is okay. So the most important thing is to remember that everything that we do, whether it be part of what we place in our mouth or what we dedicate our bodies to, our mind and our soul, all contributes to our health. So I like to sum all of that as having as little inflammation in our life from a holistic point of view. And I am very happy to hear the list of events targeting many different parts of our bodily health that are going to be ongoing here in this kitchen. But I also want to make sure that everybody understands that a healthy diet really addresses all concerns. Mm-hmm. So a healthy diet that promotes gut health is also going to be good for your heart. A diet that helps decrease the risk of cancer is also going to decrease heart disease. So don't become overwhelmed that if your concern is cancer, is this really not helping my bones or my gut or my heart health? No, it's really about healthy living and the same parameters of diet as well as exercise, sleep, contemplative practice, is beneficial for our entire health. So we don't need to piecemeal our body.
Thank goodness.
It would be overwhelming.
Yes.
It would be overwhelming.
It's basically a longevity diet. When you choose one of those diets to focus on, it does impact everything.
It's everything. Yeah, it's not really one diet for one thing. It's really about living and using your resources to live better in alignment with how you want to show up every day.
Mm-hmm. Yes. All right, I am sauteing our carrots, onions, and mushrooms and celery. And while that's sauteing, I'm going to show you how to cut up some garlic. You can buy the garlic in the jar if you want to make it, easy. I also work at another teaching kitchen where there's a garden, and the gardener was like, oh, do not do that. You got to use the fresh garlic. So I'm going to show you how to cut some garlic. So it comes in this clove, It's the least expensive way to buy it, by the way. And then to get that paper off, you just take it and lay it flat and bang it. So again, take out your frustrations in the kitchen and chop it off. And then you can peel the paper a little bit easier. I like to also chop the ends, and you'll see that that's kind of just falls apart. So we got the fresh garlic clove here. I'm going to save this for our compost. And when you're holding a knife, you want to hold it on the base and pinch it. You don't want to go like this, because you're more likely to cut yourself or slip when you do that. You have more control here. And you want to use the claw method and curl your fingers in, and so you don't chop the tips of your fingers off. And I'm just going to basically mince this and chop this up. And then once I'm done doing all the pieces of garlic, I'm not going to use my knife to scrape it and put it into the pan, because that dulls your knife. When I went to get my knives sharpened at the farmer's market, the guy's name's Grumpy, who has his little sharpening stand, and he travels all over town, so you will see him if you go to a farmer's market. And he's like, you are using your knife to scrape your food onto your in your dishes, and you're ruining your knives. So use a bench scraper. You can find this in Publix, you can find it on Amazon, and I just use it and scrape it up and then move it into the pot. That way my hands aren't getting so gross, like using my hands and putting it into the pot.
So I have a question for you, Chef.
Yes.
So I was taught that for those people who don't like that, that bitterness that sometimes comes out in garlic, taking out the green little stem in the middle is important. And I also learned a trick that sprinkling my garlic with this little bit of salt as I'm going to chop it helps keep it off the blade, because you know how it always wants to stick onto the blade?
See? Like that.
And then it wants to stick onto your finger. So what do you think about?
I'm going to try it. I've never heard of that. I think that's a great tip. So there we go. All right, so I just sprinkle salt on it. Let me grab some salt over here.
Yeah. So I think the trick is you go down the middle, and in the middle there's this little green portion. Oh, your garlic is really fresh. It doesn't have that green thing. Okay.
Perfect. So if it's not fresh, is when the green shows up?
So the green is where the sprout comes from. So if you were to try to put it in the soil, and actually I encourage people to try that, because the fresh greens of the garlic, if you don't like the very high intensity flavor of garlic, but you want to flavor a little bit, using the garlic greens can be fun. You just stick it in a pot, and when the green starts sprouting, you can cut that and chop it and use that.
Oh my gosh, look at that.
Is it easier?
It is. It's sticking, but on this side, but not on that side.
Yeah.
That is great.
That was a Thomas Keller trick.
I
learned
love
on
it. I love it.
And Allison, we've had a bunch of people join us in the last few minutes. Can you just recap which recipe you're starting with and where part you're at?
Now, I'm doing the lentil wild rice soup. And we're also going to be making a heart-healthy salad and a delicious dessert hummus. So that is what's to come. I've already put the mise en place, which is the carrots, celery, and onions in there with the mushrooms. We are sauteing that down, and now I'm just chopping up some garlic to add that as well for some flavor.
So I just want to say something about wild rice. Wild rice is actually one of my favorite things to use, and for multiple reasons that I'm going to share. So number one, so this is what we're using today. And it's only one of 2 native grains to North America. So you can find it in 2 fashions, the truly wild rice, and then the cultivated wild rice. And rice is actually a misnomer because it's not an actual rice. It's actually more like a legume, more like a bean. Very nutritious, very high in protein. And one of the things that I really like when I purchase this is I know I'm supporting, when I buy the truly wild rice, I'm supporting native Indians in the Canada or northern states, because these are harvested from grasses that grow in the water, so they're aquatic grasses. So they're very high in fiber, they're very high in protein, they've got lots of excellent minerals, and one of the things I really enjoy about making this is that I can batch cook. So Allison and I have been sharing our personal tips on batch cooking. So I can cook a large portion of this, use what I want to use for that day. I can then portion, just dry it on a sheet pan to air temperature for just a little while, and then I can literally freeze it in portions for the 1 or 2 people that I know I'll be making meals later for. And then it's already cooked. It also keeps in the refrigerator for a very, very long period of time. So, but there's also wild rices that are cultivated, equally nutritious, that perhaps you'll be able to find more easily in our grocery store.
I love batch cooking. That is a huge game changer, because a lot of times when I speak with clients about, for one-on-one or in my group counseling sessions, they're like, I don't have time to cook. And I get it. It takes some time, but if you're going to get the kitchen dirty, why not make a little bit extra and store it in your freezer? Because there truly can be faster meals in your freezer than going through a fast food restaurant or drive-through. And with the rice, what I like to do is I'll make an extra batch, and I will put it in my Ziploc freezer bag and push the air out and get it flat, and then I'll score it and freeze it that way. So then when, say, my kid's like, oh, I want some rice in my burrito, and I'm not making a bunch of rice for that meal, I can portion out just enough for him without having to make a whole bunch of rice or thaw out the big bag. So think about what dishes you really enjoy eating and how you can freeze that in the freezer. Another thing I like to do with soups especially is I will take a big muffin tin that has the 6 spots in it, and I will portion out my soup in there, throw that in the freezer. Once it's frozen, I'll pop it out and put it in a Ziploc bag. So then I have either a half or a full serving of soup when I just don't feel like cooking. I've utilized that quite a bit recently, and it's been such a time-saving tip.
Yeah, I'm also a big fan of portioning and freezing. I found that the silicone cube trays also are actually easier for some of us who don't have the hand strength to pop something out of a tin. So the nice thing about the silicone, it come in tiny little pieces, so I can make, for instance, a puree with my favorite herbs, freeze it, or I can make my own vegetable stock, or I can make soup and freeze it in a larger silicone cube size where it could be even a half a cup or a cup, and then super easy to pop those things out and stick them in the dishwasher, because as I'm a big believer that your healthy meal can be fast. So you can have fast food healthy. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be unhealthy. It does take a little thinking, a little thoughtfulness, and a little preparation ahead of time. So then this soup also includes lentils. And so for those who may not be familiar with lentils and think maybe lentils are only of one color and one flavor, there's many colors of lentils and many different ways to prepare lentils, different textures, and what they do when you cook them. So most people are familiar with a brown lentil that when you cook it kind of turns into mush. But today we're using French lentils or green lentils. And in France, this lentil originates from a certain area called Depuis. So you'll also see them in the grocery store described as Depuis lentils or French green lentils. And I'll pass this bag around and you'll see that they're this green-blue color. And one of the beautiful things about this particular lentil is it doesn't break apart. So it makes a great cold salad also once cooked, and because it retains its shape, and it has a slightly different flavor. So I'll pass this around. So one of the beautiful things about lentils, and when we think about protein, is that we have to consider a little bit of what we learned in high school. What are complete proteins, and do plant proteins are they complete? So let's review what complete means. So to create protein, we need 20 different amino acids, and our bodies only can create 11 of those. So we have to obtain the other 9 amino acids from our food source. And so when you hear something described as a complete protein, it means it has those 9 amino acids, and that's why they're called essential. Because we essentially need them from outside sources because we don't make them. So animal proteins have complete proteins, but so do certain sources of vegetable proteins or plant-based proteins. So lentils, particularly when you sprout them, become a complete protein. There are other plant-based complete proteins that actually includes hemp seeds, which we're going to be using today, buckwheat, soy products, and also blue-green algae.
And is nutritional yeast a complete protein?
It is,
and
so is wild rice.
And I'm using nutritional yeast in the feta. I pre-made the feta because we needed to marinate it overnight, so I couldn't have you sit here for 12 hours. But there is nutritional yeast in that as well. So
nutritional yeast, buckwheat, which also is called soba by the Japanese, as well as quinoa, are also complete plant-based proteins. Now, that doesn't mean that the other plant-based proteins are not valuable, but one of the fascinating things that I find is that when you look at culinary compositions from an ethnic point of view, that intuitively different ethnic groups have combined things in their meals that when one thing is combined with another, it actually creates a complete protein. Like having beans with your tortilla, a corn tortilla, that becomes a complete protein. So just understand that you don't have to be so preoccupied about, oh, is this one a complete protein versus that one's not a complete protein. Don't degrade your different sources of plant-based protein. Just understand that there's sometimes a really good reason why different ethnic groups have combined things together is because intuitively and because of what I call just social and ethnic and grandma knows best sort of intuition and looking at what makes people healthy, they've been able to discover this. So that's why certain things are paired together.
And when I was training, we were taught that it had to be at the same exact meal. But now we're learning that it just really within the same day. So don't stress about like, oh no, I have to have beans with rice. Or I have, but as long as it's in the same day that you're getting those complementary proteins together, that you'll get the benefit.
Can I take this moment to ask some questions from home? We've got a lot of questions about the rice. Everyone's very excited. So for those at home that haven't been in the chat box, go in there. That's where I've been putting the brand names of the lentils and the rice that we ordered. I have to say, too, just inside baseball, when we first started talking about this program, Dr. Guerrero got very excited talking about her wild rice sources. So we had a long conversation. It was very fun researching rice and lentils. So somebody asked the question, is this the same thing as scarified rice? Have you heard that term before?
It is not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And what about blooming rice? Have you heard of that phrase before?
Oh, I've never heard about that.
I've never heard that either.
Okay, so that's a new one for our experts in here.
We'll have to look it up for you then.
And then someone's just wondering, is there any drawbacks to using wild rice, long grain, browns? She said the example of lectins. I'm not sure if that's something that would leach into it. I mean, is there, I think probably when you're weighing the pros and cons, you're saying, the health benefits of these outweigh potentially other ones.
Yeah, so for people who joined maybe a little late or because I wasn't being completely mic'd here, wild rice is not actually a rice. It's a mislabeling. It's more about the shape that gives the sense that it's a rice. It's actually a legume. So it's very high in dietary fiber, in proteins, magnesium, manganese, phosphorus. I actually brought homework. I did homework.
I love it.
Love it.
Yes, because I'm not the nutritionist. So a lot of people think that doctors know about nutrition. No, because it's not part of our medical school curriculum. So thankfully, we are learning. We are learning. Yes, we're learning, and there's several programs throughout the United States that are pairing medical school students with opportunities to learn about nutrition.
And AdventHealth is one of them, which is great.
Yeah, so the advantage I have is that my mother always took me into the kitchen. Yeah, that's where I got started with my culinary interest, and that I love to cook. Getting back to the wild rice and the sourcing of the wild rice. So I just want to repeat, there's two sources of, quote, wild rice. One that's truly wild, and this is a native North American product. Okay, so this doesn't grow anywhere else in the world. And then there's a cultivated. So Allison encouraged me to talk about my sourcing. So one of the reasons, this is a product I buy, this I have at home. I actually buy it in a much bigger container because I buy it usually once or twice a year in large quantities, and then I portion, vacuum seal, and have it in my fridge. But I believe in putting my resources to support local farmers, indigenous groups, to allow them to make a living creating wholesome products. And this is one of those products that I buy. So I want to support the native Indian population of the northern United States and from Canada. So every time I order this, I know I'm supporting that group of people. The same thing with the lentils. So Timeless Lentils has a beautiful story, and I encourage you to go online and read about them. This essentially was a group of farmers from one of the northern states, again, that took fields where they had been using pesticides for many years, growing crops that were sponsored, and they decided to retake their health, their personal health, their family's health, and the health of the soil back into their own hands by converting their fields to organic and growing lentils. All of these varieties of lentils, also some unusual varieties of chickpea, a black chickpea, and this beautiful barley. It's a blue barley, which is extremely high in protein. It's one of my favorite grains. And so, again, I source from them. I have it shipped to my home. I buy in big amounts. My husband calls me the bean lady because I'm always, looking for sources of plant-based protein, and I do take the time and effort, and perhaps there's a very small increase in cost, but I feel that way I am supporting good husbandry, good support of the planet by putting my money in what I believe. And so that's why Allison was very kind to experiment these products today.
Yeah, and where is the lentils? Where is this is it in the United States?
I believe it's Wisconsin or Minnesota.
Oh, Minnesota. That's right. And I love that because so many of the farms in the United States are subsidized by the government, and then they're getting a lot of GMOs and things that I'm not really wanting to ingest. So I love that they took over their land and be like, nope, we are going to have what's good for the body, and it may come at a higher price, but I want to challenge you. So sometimes people are like, well, I can't afford that. That's too expensive for a thing of lentils. But why don't you go into your pantry and look at all the food that you have in there? I'm guilty of this too. And see what is in there that is expired. Throw that out. You'll be shocked at how much waste that you have sitting in your pantry being unused because you had a BOGO deal at Publix. I'm guilty of it too. So when you're mindful about where you're putting your dollars for what you're eating, and you're only buying what you're going to consume and consume what you buy, you'll find that you're not really spending that much more money, okay? So maybe indulging in something that's a little bit more money than you typically would purchase than a can of lentils from Goya in the grocery store. You can get something that tastes really great, it's going to last a long time, and give you a lot more health benefits as well.
Yeah. So just like the wild rice, lentils and other legumes can be batch cooked, and that's what I do. So I might sprout a whole pound of lentils, or I may cook a whole pound of lentils, make it into a lentil soup, and then freeze portions of it, and know that I have that later, and I don't have to start from scratch and cook again.
Yeah, and lentils are a great base, so I have made lentils for different classes where I haven't needed to use it all, so I'll I just froze it just plain, and then so I can make lentil tacos with it, add a little bit of seasoning. I could stuff a red pepper with some lentils and some sauteed spinach and vegetables. So you don't have to have a finished product in your freezer to batch cook. You could have little, parts of a recipe. And same for your refrigerator. I like to do something what's called the salad bar in my fridge, where I'll pre-cut all the makings of different recipes so that I can be like, well, I'm hungry for a stir fry. I've got all the vegetables already chopped up. I pick what I want, throw it in the skillet, and there you go. So I always am trying to encourage my clients to get shortcuts in the kitchen so they actually get in the kitchen and start making food versus going through the drive-through.
Yeah, so you can actually try out different colors of lentils. So for instance, the decorticate lentil, which is like your orange lentil or your gold yellow lentil, they actually literally disintegrate. They're very fast cooking. Lentils are very fast cooking. Mm-hmm. So unlike some beans where you have to think ahead and soak, and then it takes hours to get them to that right texture and cook through, lentils usually can cook in 20 to 40 minutes or less. And particularly the decorticate ones, they really just fall apart. So they make a wonderful soup base. So from this company, you'll see that there's the green lentils, there's orange, there's gold lentils, there's a black lentil that is also called beluga, because when you, like beluga caviar, so they actually keep that little bright, really bright black shape. They stay intact, and they come together kind of like how beluga caviar would. So you could make a plant-based version of that on a potato pancake or something.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Very good.
Are you concerned about lectins with lentils? Because I was always taught that you should soak all beans prior to using them.
I do not pre-soak. I rinse my lentils. And when I sprout them, obviously, that occurs over almost 2 to 2.5 days. But
And
no.
how do you sprout them?
Oh, well, we should have a sprouting class.
Yeah.
So what you do with the lentils, you soak them overnight, or you can do this with chickpeas also. You do want to have an organic source of lentils or chickpeas. So then you soak them overnight in clean water after you've washed them and rinsed
Set
them
timer for 10 minutes.
to make sure that the water looks clear, because you want to get rid of any dust particles. And then you have a colander that you can have over a bowl, or if you have one of those calendars that kind of stretches out, has those extenders that you can put over your sink, and you put a towel over it. And then every 12 hours, you're just going to rinse the lentils or the chickpeas. So now they're drained. So you've soaked them, you drain them, you spread them out over a colander so that they're, maybe one bean thing, one as thin as possible so they aerate, because you're not wanting them to get mildewy. And then you just rinse them until you see them start to sprout. And so you can, once they sprout, it's utterly up to you how far you want to take the sprouting. So some people actually want to eat the sprout versus the grain that's sprouted. I personally like to eat the grain sprouted, so I don't really let them sprout for too long. So usually I'm done sprouting, depending on the temperature of my kitchen or your kitchen, in about 1.5 to 2 days. So if I start on a Thursday, I'm already cooking, for instance. I like to cook my sprouted lentils or chickpeas.
But if you're not interested in sprouting, you don't have to do any pre-prep or any of those.
Not for the lentils, no. Now the chickpeas, you do have to soak. Yes, you do have to soak.
Same with kidney beans and things like that.
Yeah.
You need to soak them. So let's talk about that, though. Do you have a moment, or do you need to talk? Okay.
Yeah.
So there's different degrees of drying of your legumes. I'm sorry. Okay. So again, learning about the company that you're sourcing your legumes from. So there are companies who really dry the legume. And that's going to require that it be soaked maybe even 8, 12 hours. So that requires that you have to think literally the day before. I buy my legumes, my beans, from a company called Rancho Gordo. This is a company out of California, and they work with local California farmers, bean farmers, as well as from small villages in Mexico, trying again to support that farmers can live at home, do what they do, and still make a living and be able to thrive. So they do not extensively dry their beans. So it does not require that I have to soak them overnight. So I can soak for 4 hours. I don't even have to soak at all if I forgot. There's a method of just quickly putting your beans into the pot covered with water. You bring it to a rapid boil. And then you can either cook longer or you can let it sit in the hot water and then drain after an hour and then start cooking them. There's methods of cooking beans after that short soak in either an Instapot, like a pressure cooker. I'm personally afraid of pressure cookers, so I don't do that. So
They're so easy. I was terrified too. They're a game changer.
So we'll do a sprouting and a pressure cooker class. But I like to cook in this Mexican clay pot that is just for beans. So it's the bean pot, and this is
the bean lady
pot.
and the bean pot.
The bean pot. Yeah, the bean lady.
That's your branding.
So it's a clay pot that's only used for beans. So it is actually handmade in Mexico, and it's what I cook my beans in. Because something about, and I learned this when I lived in South America, that a pot that's dedicated to one thing adds flavor to the final product. So there's something about that. Yeah. Kind of like having your green tea in a clay pot from China. And it just gives it something.
Very cool. Yeah. I'm going to start with the salad while that's simmering. I need to let that simmer for about 10 minutes before I add the lentils, and then we're going to cook it for 20. So then you can get started on the salad. I wanted to show you a little tip. When you buy these clamshell salads, which are BOGO right now at Publix, FYI, I get so frustrated because they seem to go bad so fast, and it's because of the moisture that is in it. So what you do when you go home, you take a paper towel and you just fold it up and put it on there, and you store it upside down in your fridge. Yep. It'll last a lot longer.
Same thing with your sprouts.
Yeah, yeah.
That way they don't get mushy.
Yes. And I also buy a bunch of spinach, and I will just freeze it just like this because it's easier to grab frozen and throw it in different dishes. So if I'm making like an egg with veggies, I could throw some spinach in or some sauce or my smoothie. I've got some frozen spinach to go. And the freezer is your friend. Did you know that you could also freeze like zucchini and use that as ice cubes in your smoothie? I've been doing that lately, and you can't taste it, and it's just another way to get another vegetable in, so you increase your fiber intake, and it helps feed those gut bugs so you have a balanced gut microbiome. So kind of got off track. So what I'm going to do for this, we are going to add, I like arugula for the peppery flavor. I'm going to add some fresh berries, and strawberry season is upon us. And I like edamame. This is
another soy product.
Soybeans.
Complete protein.
We are going to add some edamame. You find that in the freezer section, and you can get them individual little baggies or the big bag. So depending on who's eating it in your house, you might want to get the smaller bag so you don't use it all so fast or let it go to waste. And then I'm going to add some blueberries to it.
Powerful antioxidants here.
Yes. I love red onion, so I'll sprinkle some red onion.
Yeah, and for people who don't like some of that sharp taste of the red onion, one trick is to blanch them. So just put them in a colander and then just pour boiling water over them, let them sit, and it kind of takes it down a notch if you don't really like that very strong oniony flavor.
I love it strong.
But not everybody, not everybody.
I know, not everybody.
My mother also taught me a trick of just after you blanch them, just having them sit for a little while, maybe in lemon juice or a mild vinegar. That also takes it down yet another notch.
Oh, wow.
So it depends on how much you love the aggressiveness of the onion or not.
And my husband taught me a really great trick. Leave them out. He hates onions. It's so frustrating. I married the pickiest eater ever. And it's like, And I'm like, of course I had to marry a picky eater when I'm like all into cooking all the time. So this is why I love these classes, because I have a variety of people that are interested in eating a variety of different foods. So, all right, so I used Instacart to help me with grocery shopping, and the lady brought me some really squishy avocados. So annoyed. So I brought a bunch of them. I brought all the ones I had from my own stash. She got me one hard that did not ripen enough. So I'll put it back in this bag. This is how I ripen it. So I'm gonna cut a couple of these and see what they look like. And you know, I see a lot of people taking a sharp knife and cutting their avocado in their hand. Don't do that, unless you wanna come visit us in the emergency room. A lot of people cut their hands that way. So cut it on a cutting board. You can use a butter knife. You don't need to use a sharp knife. And this one's okay.
Oh, it looks good.
It's all right. And you just cut away the rotten part. I'm gonna cut up in a couple and see. This one's really, we gotta see how bad this shopper was. This is what she gave me yesterday. And I'm like, I can squeeze it so easily.
So a beautiful thing though about avocados.
Like, come on, Instacart.
This is so sad.
This is from Instacart. Like, come on. Like, that's ridiculous. Yeah, but I feel bad because it's not my fault. Yeah, I do return things that are bad, but when I'm in charge. But now I know. I buy my own avocados.
So the great thing about avocados is that it's a wonderful source of a very favorable type of fat. So not all fat is created equal. Mm-hmm. And we actually are blessed to live in an area where we can grow avocados, multiple different types of varietals. And so for those of you who want to experiment at growing things in your own backyard, arugula during our cold months is super easy to grow because you only have to allow it to get about 3 to 4 inches. I do something called cut and come again. So it means that you can sprinkle your seeds for any of your lettuces very densely, water them, and then when they're 4 inches tall, you can cut them, water and fertilize, and it will come again. So if you get started like in late November, you can have your own salad in your backyard or even in a pot. I actually grew it always in a pot because that way I could control the quality of the soil. So I could buy organic soil and have organic compost in my pots to grow my lettuces. And if your lettuces seem a little wilty, one important trick to how to revive them is soak them in water, let them sit there for a good 30 minutes, spin them and put them in the fridge. And all of a sudden, they're rehydrated, they're alive again, they're crispy again. So so don't throw away your spinach if they just look wilty, they just need hydration. And unfortunately, or fortunately, our refrigerators are dehydrators. So when we put things in the refrigerator, they dehydrate. And these are a very high water content product, so they can tend to get dehydrated.
Have you guys heard of Thrive Market? It's an online shopping, it's kind of like a Sam's Club online because you have to pay a membership to be able to shop there, but I find a lot of ingredients I don't typically find at the typical grocery store or that I would have to go to Whole Foods to find. I like this because it's just raspberries and they use chia seeds to help congeal it. You could also make your own jam at home by using mashed berries and chia seeds. I've done that before too. So I just wanted to show you a new way to have some jelly. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to be placing our chickpeas. I strained the chickpeas and rinsed them off. This is low sodium chickpeas. And did you know that you could save the brine in a can of chickpeas, and that's called aquafaba? You could use that in replacement of an egg in baking. So, and if you want to save the black bean aquafaba, you use that in like for brownies, because it would be black and it would look weird. But people have made it into a meringue and you put it on top of drinks if they're vegan. And
high source of protein, even in the water.
Yeah. And something to point out too, we're talking a lot of plant-based sources, and we do eat animal protein as well. So we do consider animal protein as an accessory or a condiment. Yeah. So we're not necessarily saying we only eat plant-based sources. We're plant-powered and encouraging more plants, but we do incorporate some animal protein into our diet as well. So I do eat eggs, but the other day I wanted to make a dish that required an egg. It was like something that I was baking, and I'm like, I don't have any eggs, but I had some chickpeas, so I used the aquafaba, and it was great. You could also make
flaxseed, right?
Flaxseed and chia seeds.
Yep.
Yep, I've done that too. So okay, so and now I'm using peanut butter. I don't know if your recipe says almond butter or peanut butter. You could use either one, but I had peanut butter, and I want to talk to you about when you're shopping for nut butters, you got to really pay attention to the nutrition ingredient label, because they add so much junk into your typical peanut butter that you're feeding your family. And this only has peanuts in it and maybe a little salt. Let's see. Yeah, contains 1% or less of salt. So it's peanuts. So I like this. It has no added sugars to it. So you really want to turn the label around. Of the common brands, this is the only one I really have found that's just nuts. So I like the Smuckers. And when these are really sticky, and it's annoying because it sticks to your measuring cup. I like to spray the inside of my measuring cup so that it easily slides off.
Oh, I like that trick.
That is a good one.
Yeah.
So I'm going to add a half a cup. So I'm just going to take a little bit of my olive oil spray. I like olive oil and avocado oil spray because they're a good source of fat. That's generally the only fats I use at my house, because you can use it at high smoke point or high temperatures and they won't get inflammatory. All right, so it does separate. Now, if you really want to be fancy, I have friends that do this. I have not tried it myself, but they will blend it when they come home and then re-put it in there, and it stays together and doesn't separate. I'm not that, it seems like a big mess to me, so I just try and mix it every time I use it.
I saw online from New York ads that there is actually a peanut butter stirrer.
Oh.
On Amazon that comes with you just screw it in and it kind of looks like a thicker wire.
Yeah. So that would be a good Christmas gift for these fancy friends that do this when they bring home their peanut butter. Right. Yeah, definitely. I wish I would have invented that.
Yes.
All right. Whoops. I'm making a mess. Oh, good. You like the tofu?
I've never had tofu before.
Never?
Every time people say tofu, it's like,
That's why I love it. And that's why I like these classes too, because people are trying things they don't typically eat.
Yeah.
So that is a huge compliment. Thank you very much.
Oh.
I know it doesn't taste exactly like feta cheese, but it's close your eyes and dream about it,
Yeah, so the beautiful thing about tofu is it really takes on any flavor that you place with it. So my 87-year-old mother, I got her to like tofu.
Awesome.
So what I do with my tofu is I cut it into squares or little rectangles, and I season them and then dust them with rice flour. And then I pan saute it. So it gets really crispy on the outside, and it stays soft on the inside.
What kind of flour do you do?
Rice flour.
Ah, okay. That because I like tofu that way. When I go, I try tofu when I go out to restaurants just to see how different people
It's
prepare
much
it.
healthier than deep frying. Like if you go to an
Yeah.
Asian restaurant, they'll deep fry those cubes.
Yeah.
So in this way, you can actually make the seasoning with whatever you want. You might like Chinese 5 spices, so you mix the Chinese 5 spice, the salt, with your rice flour. You've cut up your tofu. If you're using this one, the one in water, you do need to dry it out first. You cut it into your cubes, and then I put it in a glass Tupperware container, the rice flour there, sprinkle the rice flour, toss them gently so you don't break up your tofu, and literally that can stay in your fridge all week. And then you can just pan saute as you go, or you can pan saute everything on your batch baking day, and then just reheat them in your toaster oven or in the pan again if you just want to freshen up the crispiness. But they stay very well in the rice flour, and then you can just take out whatever portion you want and pan saute it.
That's awesome.
With a tiny bit of the spray olive oil in a
Yeah.
non-stick pan.
And in your air fryer. I put it in the air fryer
Yeah, I
as
don't
well.
have one of those gadgets.
I was late to the party for that one, and I love it. It actually replaced my coffee maker on my countertop.
Oh, golly.
I-
I don't know. I can't give up my coffee. Coffee's
Well,
good for you, by
no,
the way.
It is good for you, but I bought and I'm the only one that drinks it in my house because I got picky people. So I bought the coffee maker that makes 1 cup and smaller. I moved that over here, and then I got my air fryer that's a dehydrator, roaster, grill, all of that. All Ninja Foodie Grill XL. Love it.
Yeah. So coffee wasn't on the menu, but since you mentioned it, I just want to put it out there because this must be the most common food-related question I get. Is coffee bad for you, right? And coffee is not bad for you. It's what you put in your coffee that's bad for
Right.
you. It's the sugar, the cream, the artificial, flavorant, all those things are bad for you. And then when people tell me, well, I drink decaf, and so that must be safer or better. Well, it turns out not so. And the method of how the coffee got decaffeinated actually could be worse for you than just having your cup of coffee. So actually there were 2 research papers that came out in the last couple of years that actually demonstrate that actually people who drink coffee do live longer. You just have to be mindful of what do you put into your coffee. So don't make a good thing, a healthy thing, something bad for you.
Right.
Yeah. So it's not the coffee fault.
Dr. Guerrero and Allison, we are back up and running. So
Hi, everybody.
everybody at home, that they are so committed. Like we have more than 40 people that have stayed just waiting.
I want
so.
to know. One of those is my husband. Hi, honey.
So, to explain it right, we took a power hit, us and several other places in the
Wow.
area.
Oh,
so,
wow.
and our
Sorry.
backup system didn't back up. So, I apologize to those at home. Thank you for hanging with us. Can you give a 30-second recap of while we were previously
Yes.
on, what happened while we were? What step are you on? now?
Okay.
Yeah.
What were we doing? Were we doing the salad?
Yes,
Yeah,
you were
we're
doing
talking about
the salad, so everybody
Okay.
got their salads.
Perfect.
Okay, tofu.
So you talk about the tofu.
Okay, tofu, it's a complete protein. And this salad that Allison has made us has tofu in 3 versions. It has edamame, which is the green tofu bean, so the soy protein in its green form. The tofu, which is taking the dehydrated bean and then processing it into the protein that's now coagulated, and miso, which is a fermented soy product. So the fermentation makes it also a wonderful addition for your gut microbiome. So this salad is a powerhouse.
Yes. And I added some berries. We talked about hemp seed and
Another
walnuts,
whole
a
food.
good source of omega-3 fatty acids, complete proteins.
Avocado, another omega-3.
My Instacart lady did me wrong and gave me some rotten avocados yesterday, but that's okay.
It's still delicious.
It's still great. All right, I'm going to move over to the salad before I get noisy with
You mean the soup?
I mean the soup before I get noisy with the food processor over here. So I am adding in some spinach to add in some more greens, and studies show that if you get 30 different servings of plant-based foods in a week, it's really good for your gut microbiome. Your gut is your second brain. So a lot of times when we're eating a lot of processed food, we are messing up the balance of the good and bad bacteria in our guts. So when you hear, it's very trendy to talk about gut microbiome right now, and there's reason.
And it's all about the diversity.
Yes.
So unfortunately, our Western diet has decreased the diversity of the beneficial bacteria and yeast that live in our gut.
Right.
So our job is to try to restore that diversity by really eating from the full gamut of colors, full gamut of vegetable products, and then just being mindful of the source. How cleanly are they created? Are they grown in a healthy soil, not tainted with pesticides and things that would decrease that biodiversity that you're wishing to introduce into your gut?
Right. And that's a good point. I didn't mention earlier when I was chopping my carrots, things like carrots and celery, you want to buy organic because this grows in the ground. So if there's a bunch of pesticides in the soil, you're getting some of the pesticides in the food that you're eating. And the celery is like a straw, so it's just sucking everything up there. So I know not everyone has a budget to buy everything organic, and you don't have to buy everything organic. Like a lemon, I don't need to buy it because it's got this outer part that I'm not going to eat unless I'm going to be zesting it.
Yeah.
Unless I'm going to be zesting it. But like bananas, I don't buy organic bananas because I peel that. I don't eat the outside of the banana. So I'm adding in, so 30 servings of plants. That sounds like a lot, right? People are like, I don't do that. But we're going to count at the end and see how many different plants we just got in this one meal alone. Any guesses?
Do you want to describe what a serving is? Because I think people also think a serving is like a dinner plate full, and
Right.
it's not.
So for the veggies, like one.
Like this apple must be like 3 servings.
Yeah, that's huge.
This is like a huge apple.
That's 3 servings of, yes. And so for the salad here, we're going to be doing like a cup is about a serving. And if you're cooking it down, it's even less because you have a lot. Half a cup to a cup. And one banana is 2 servings. Grapefruit's 2 servings.
So you can see it's a lot easier
Yeah.
to get the servings when you realize that the serving is really about what you can put in your hand.
Right. And I'm going to add some of the lemon to this. This helps keep the spinach bright and green.
And it's a wonderful source of vitamin C, as is the spinach.
And this vitamin C helps you with iron absorption. So,
which lentils have.
Right.
So like we were describing at the beginning, there's a reason why certain things have been paired over generations. It's because one thing helps the absorption or the nutritional benefit or the bioavailability of the other components.
right. So there
That's
we
looking
go.
beautiful.
We do have a question from the comment section if you ladies would like to take a second.
Yes, please.
Julie asked, what type of brand of white miso or any type of miso do you like or recommend? Most miso that they have tried is too sweet and they prefer savory.
So the color of the miso has to do with the soy product plus what else has been added. So there's white miso that is the sweetest, also called Japanese miso. The red miso, I think, hails from a Korean background. And there's also misos that are made with rice bran. The white miso has a product that allows for the fermentation. It's a type of aspergillus that actually is what is very favorable to our gut microbiome.
Right.
But
I found that I had a hard time finding, I didn't bring my miso with me. I had a hard time finding my miso in Publix. At Fresh Market, they have it. Whole Foods, I'm sure, has it. I bought mine on Thrive Market because I was buying some things anyway and I needed to fill my cart. And I like them because it comes in a pouch, so I could just squeeze out what I need and seal it so it lasts a lot longer. And they have different varieties.
But miso has a very long shelf life, even if you buy it in the paste. The difference of the paste is that you're going to want to take a portion and then kind of blend it with hot water to make it a little creamier, and then you add more hot water into it. So for those of us who want an instant pick-me-up in the afternoon, I have this at work in the refrigerator at work, where I have my tub of white miso. I have one of those tea or coffee dispensers that can just put out hot water, and I make a quick little brothy soup in the afternoon, and it's instant revival.
Yeah.
But the color of the miso really has to do with what do you like, and then what is the food application.
Yeah.
I think for your feta,
I use
tofu,
white.
you use the white to give it that flavor.
Yeah. Okay, for this, we're going to add a little bit of chopped parsley. So I buy the parsley loose. I buy cilantro loose like this as well, and I store it on my counter in some water. It looks pretty. Sometimes I put it in my fridge, but this helps it last longer. When you bring it home, you want to make sure you cut all the leaves off the stems that are in the water, because then it'll go bad faster. And
cut off the bottom of the stem so that way it can actually absorb.
Yes. And I am the queen of kitchen gadgets, so I like these herb scissors. So you'll see they cut lots of blades, and you can chop up a bunch. It's better than plucking them all off and putting it on the cutting board. This is a cool activity for a kid to do that can use scissors. And I'm not so worried about the stem, because this is going to cook down a little bit. There's a lot of flavor in the stem. I'm trying not to get the stem, but I'm not beating myself up if I get a little bit of the stem in there. So you could do this with basil for like a basil salad with tomatoes and mozzarella. So this will be my link in the email I send to you afterwards as well.
Yeah, parsley is also something that's easy to grow in a pot.
Yes.
Great during the winter months. If you don't like to grow, we have wonderful farmers who grow things for us. So lots of farmers at our farmers markets, and I think that's another way to support farmers growing wholesome food close by.
Yeah.
So the farther away things come from, the more negative impact to the planet, for sure.
And flavor, you know, if it's traveling from the other side of the world, it's been sitting around in these trucks for a long time and losing flavor. I really like Freshfield Market, which is downtown. They have a huge farmer's market inside. It's open every single day, and then on the other side it's a butcher. So it's a one-stop shop. You really can get a lot of good, delicious stuff.
Yeah, and I'll put a plug in for the Winter Parks Farmers Market, since we're in Winter Park.
Yeah.
I love Frog Song. I love Sugar Top. The Lake Meadows, the representation there.
I love Lake Meadows. I went there, my Bible study, we did an outing there, and we got to walk through. It was cool. And you saw
all the chickens.
All the chickens are just running wild, having fun. And it's wild open range, and it was really, they were happy chickens. So it was very cool to meet the farmers there as well. All right.
Yeah, and there's some great people at the farmers market also growing mushrooms, which we had in one of our dishes. I think here, and also sprouts, if you don't want to sprout yourself. It turns out sprouting can be fun, but you do have to be, if you're going to sprout the greens and you want a constant supply, unlike the lentils and the chickpeas that just need a little attention, then maybe buying it from a sprouting farmer.
Yeah. I love sunflower sprouts, and I have a cool story about this, and it's going to be a plug for family dinners. So I went through a divorce 10 years ago. I'm happily remarried with the man that God really intended for me to be with, and at that time my kids were 4 and 7, and I stopped doing family dinners. I ate dinner around the table every single night growing up. I knew how important that was. It helps reduce risky behaviors, improves their grades, it improves just emotional support, really a way to connect. And at that time I was like, I couldn't even take care of myself. So I'm like, here's chicken nuggets, pizza, watch Little Einsteins, I'm out. So I went to the farmer's market to buy my sprouts, and the guy that normally sells it was gone. And I'm like, great, this man, I hope he's okay, but he's not here. So the next time I went, there was this kid who came from the the cheese station now was selling the sprouts. And I'm like, where's the sprout guy, you know? And he said he's been missing, so I'm taking over and doing the sprouts. And
Thank you.
so as he was cutting off the sprouts for me, I saw this number on his arm, and it was, I joked around because I was trying to be cool. I'm like, what is that, your prison tattoo? And he's like, no, that's the latitude and longitude of my parents' dining room table, because there's no other place that I would rather be than right there with my siblings.
Aww.
I'm like, I still get chills every time I tell that story. And I'm like, you have convicted me completely. And so from then on, I really made an effort to get the family back to the table. It's something my children look forward to and expect, which I love. And I've gone back to that farmer's market to look for the sprout guy, and he's never been back. I swear he was an angel to give me a message and tell me. And that's my mission, to get people to have time-saving tips in the kitchen. Batch cook, use your freezer.
Or cook together.
Cook together.
Cook together.
And
It's
get your
fun.
family back to the table, because that's a stress reliever, and that is also good for your heart, and that's good for, you know, longevity and things like that. So that's my little plug.
We do
about
have
family
another
dinners.
question in the comment section, going back to sprouts, but Terry in the comments asked, why did you not use the stem from the cilantro?
Oh, the parsley?
This is parsley.
Oh, parsley. I'm so sorry.
Because
You could.
you could. I wasn't going to cook it down enough for it to get tender enough, so I didn't want you eating your soup and having like a stick type texture in your mouth. But if I'm doing like a salsa with cilantro, I throw it all in. I'm totally fine. And it's got a lot of flavor in the stem.
And when you're cooking your beans or your lentils, you want to put that in an herb bag in the pot as you're cooking, because the parsley stems, along with your garlic and your celery, carrot, onion, actually flavor. It's a wonderful flavorant to your beans.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to make it really loud for a second. Hold on. All right, it's really thick. So what I'm going to do is take the liquid that the dates
Oh, the
were
dates,
in,
yeah.
and thin that out a little bit. Like dancing. Okay. Let's see. And I encourage people when they're cooking at home,
sorry.
to taste as you go, because you never know if you need to add a little bit more salt or pepper or whatnot.
Your soup turned out great.
Good, I'm so glad. That was delicious. Okay.
Now, if you're new to the wild rice, you can cook the wild rice even more so that it looks like a hot dog bun.
Really? Mm-hmm. Like that big? What?
Well, no, that's big.
Oh my, how does that
you know how
happen?
the hot dog bun has like the brown on the outside and the white in the middle?
Uh-huh.
So you can, if you want your wild rice a little more tender, then you want to let it get to that stage where it kind of splits. It'll still have that dark coloring on the outside, but it'll look white in the middle.
All right.
So while everybody's eating, I'm going to give a plug for an upcoming event, because in the comments, somebody said they'd love to learn how to grow microgreens. And I said, funny you should say that, because it's one of our
just
regular
talking about
classes
that.
we have here. And in fact, and make sure everyone in this room knows, on Saturday, April 27th, is our third annual, I think, Ward and Wellbeing Earth Day Block Party. And it's a wonderful event. The day kicks off with Track Shack's 5K, Run for the Trees, but you don't have to do the race to come. But it's a really wonderful block party that we put on with the City of Winter Park, with all sorts of activities here on campus for families. One of the activities is you come and build your own microgreen grow kit. So come out and see us that day. Everything involved in the event is free. Allison is going to be doing some plant-powered cooking demonstrations with Dr. Amber Orman of AdventHealth. So we're going to have cooking demos. We're going to have a drum circle. We're going to have Earth Day art crafts, microgreen, all sorts of fun activities. So we hope to see everybody here that day. Angelique, your question is actually it's a live in-person event. And sorry, no, that event will not be online for those not in our area. But it's a good excuse to come to Winter Park, Florida that time of year.
Yeah. It's beautiful weather.
It is beautiful weather.
Check out our farmers market. Bring your knives and ask for Grumpy to sharpen them.
There's been a couple questions there I noticed about, and you may have answered it while I was gone, and if not, I apologize. Where did you buy the Mexican pot you mentioned that you cooked?
Yeah, Rancho Gordo. So Rancho Gordo is the name of the company. It's the Heirloom Bean Company. And on their website, you'll find access to the bean pot, the clay pot.
Great.
And there's some other wonderful things like you can buy, anybody here like hot chocolate? I do. So in Mexico and much of South America, the way you froth your hot chocolate when you're making it on the stovetop is something that actually is carved out of wood, and it has like a little ring. And so you do this with it as you're heating up your hot chocolate. So it becomes this ritual of hot chocolate making. So they have these very authentic Central and South American products on there.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going.
Well, isn't that
Allison, I'm going to ask you to
beautiful?
stick that on the prep area of the cooktop before we pass it around, just to show
Okay.
everybody.
I will.
So this is the mousse, right?
This is a dessert hummus.
Dessert hummus, sorry.
And so with this one, we added, as a natural sweetener, we use dates instead of white sugar, which you'll typically find in dessert recipes. So we use dates. I put them in hot water to soak them down, and I made sure I got the pit out. And then here we are going to be serving that with some pretzel chips or some apple. So I'm going to slice the apple really thin. And this is a fun thing to add for your next holiday party. Also, we eat with our eyes first, so I encourage you to try and, spruce it up with some additions. I could have used raspberries, but strawberries were BOGO this year. I try to be budget conscious when I do these classes, and always share what's on sale. So today's the last day. If you shop at Publix, strawberries, your arugula, spinach, those are all BOGO.
So in reference to the strawberries, it's one of the few fruits, I just learned this from my husband. It's the only fruit that has the seeds on the outside. Yeah, so all those little indentations are the seeds. So this is probably like other berries, like the raspberry and blackberry, that perhaps there's more relevance to trying to buy products that are grown without pesticides. Mm-hmm. So I always like to say something about organic, and just simply because we know that some things that are labeled organic are very expensive, and just know that organic is a government labeling. So,
and it costs a lot of money to put it on there.
And it costs the farmers a lot of money to acquire that labeling. So it's more important to talk to your farmers, and that's why I really encourage people to go to the farmer's market or grow it yourself, because that way you actually really understand what is it that you're putting in your mouth, and ask them, how do you grow this? Do you eat this? Do you give this to your child? So you'll understand the method of growth. Right now, there's another methodology that is being touted because it requires less water. So there again, that's another planet-saving technique. So you'll see that mentioned amongst farmers because they can grow without having to use high volumes of water. And we know that water is a very precious element and not enough of it, and particularly in certain places in the world. Yeah.
And at that Freshfield Market, where the butcher shop, we were in there, and they were saying that their meat is typically organic and not labeled because it costs too much money to put that organic.
So where is Freshfield now?
It's off of, it's downtown, it's off of Michigan. It's like if you go down Orange, south, take a left on Michigan, you'll see a Walgreens. You take a right, and it's tucked in there. I think it used to be called Mom and Pop's before, but now it's Freshfield Market.
Yeah.
It's next to what? Freshfield Farms, sorry,
Right.
thank you. All right.
Yeah. And then again, at the Winter Park Farmers Market,
get
there
this.
are farmers that bring meats that come from local farms where animals are raised with responsible husbandry. So no added feeds that are pesticide laden. So like Lake Meadows Farm, yeah. Or Frog Song also brings some meat products.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That looks pretty.
Pretty. Let's get a picture of us holding this. I forgot about that. We need a promo picture. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
There you go. Thank you. Okay.
So
let me-
since we were talking about, even though this is
I'm
a
gonna
plant
grab
forward
some
class
tongs.
and we want to encourage people to be plant forward,
I'll
I do want to say something about
Thank
fish, since we
you.
mentioned fish is a product that has a lot of omega-3. It has a beneficial fats, and it is a complete source of protein. So don't forget to also support our local fishermen. So we have a beautiful coastline all around our peninsula, our beautiful peninsula. So get to know your fishermen and try to buy local fish, because that way you know that the fish is coming from the local waters. The U.S. government is very
just
keen
stab it.
on being
Sorry.
attentive to where our fishermen can fish,
Oh,
so
yeah.
we're not
Where'd those come
overfishing,
from?
and our
awesome,
coral
yes.
reefs are protected.
Thank
So
you.
my favorite source is Wild Oceans. They are a family that are right off the coast of Florida, close to Titusville. And so I source my fish from them, and they come to a local farmer's market too. They come to the Audubon Farmer's Market on Monday nights. Wild Oceans. And Cynthia is our beautiful fishmonger. So she'll put out an email every Sunday night and what has come in that weekend.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
That email list that you handed out initially.
Right here. There you go. And so I'm collecting emails, and Jackie will put the opt-in in the chat. With the, what I do is every Tuesday I send a Tasty Tuesday recipe and in your inbox. Plus I talk about any programming I may have coming up. I'm in the process of making an online course. I also see one-on-one clients for nutrition and group clients, a meal planning program as well. And then after this class, I'm going to be sending you a recipe pack of heart-healthy recipes. Thank you. And I'm also going to send a link to my Amazon store with all the kitchen gadgets in there. I'm going to look for that peanut butter lid thing and try and add that to it, because that's a good gift. So if you want to opt in for that, please enter in your email. I will get that to you later on this week. I may or may not have a replay of the webinar depending on what we got from it. So we shall see. But that concludes the cooking part of it. So do you guys have any questions about? Good. So what'd you think of the lentil? Who had not had lentils before?
Well, not really.
Not really, yeah.
It's delicious.
Good.
Oh, I'm so glad you liked it. Yeah.
So glad. And the texture is good, right? Like, I like the texture of that lentil.
Tastes
Yeah.
good, the whole thing.
Good.
It's not like that. What makes that little spicy?
I've added a little bit of red pepper flakes to it.
Oh, that was
And it
Okay.
had the apple cider vinegar
Yeah, yeah,
with the mother. Mhm.
yeah.
pretty good.
Good, I'm so
And then
glad.
there was also the miso.
Yeah,
Can we come here every day?
absolutely, please. Yes, that'll keep me a job, yes.
I live
Yeah.
on my own, so I don't do anything like that.
Yeah, well, we host these once a month, or I do, and lately we've been pairing with different physicians. So it's here, and the next one is a month from now. I'm doing it with my friend who's also a dietitian who has the PhD in dietetics, where she did research on the gut microbiome. So we're going to be talking about what food the gut bugs want to eat and how we should eat that to make them happy so that we live longer and have healthier lives.
Yeah.
I think so. Is that going to be,
Oh,
is hybrid
protein?
as well? Yeah, March 28th.
So actually there was a question about eating enough protein. So
Oh,
actually
perfect.
she and I were having this conversation ahead of
Yes.
time. So
I don't make the meals, and, myself.
Right.
It's not
Yeah.
So you can actually snack with and still have a high protein diet. So
Mm-hmm.
you're not bringing the right snacks.
right. So and that hummus dip
Yeah.
could be a wonderful source
Beans
of
are
protein for
great.
you. So
And eggs too are good.
Eggs a lot.
Okay, eggs are a good
then-
source.
Yeah. So we were talking about that earlier because this is a frequent question. It's like, am I getting enough protein? How much protein is enough protein? So your needs for protein change over your lifespan, and also based on your level of physical activity. So the current recommendations is that it's somewhere between 0.8 and maybe 1.2 grams of protein per kilo per body weight. So in general terms, though, when you look at animal sources of protein, there's no advantage to eating a large amount of animal protein because your body can only utilize a certain, so it equalizes to a point where it cannot.
At once, you're talking about.
At one time.
Yeah, at one time. Yeah.
So if you're distributing your caloric intake over 3 meals a day, there's a limit to how much animal protein your body can absorb. So one of the metrics that was published in the original Blue Zone book is that there's no value above 0.5 grams per kilo. So if you think about that, it boils down to someone like my size of no more than 3 ounces of an animal protein. However, a plant-based protein, you can consume unlimited amounts and still benefit from them, right? So that's why when my patients ask me, what should they be eating, my recommendation is be very plant forward. 2/3 of what's on the plate should be fruits and vegetables, legumes, whole grains, and particularly combining your legumes with your whole grains, because like we talked at the beginning, so that can sometimes make the protein complete if the single plant-based protein is not complete itself. But if you're going to consume an animal protein, then be selective. Try to choose your healthiest, least inflammatory animal protein. So that's going to be your eggs, a low-fat dairy, fish, seafood, and if you really like poultry, the breast of perhaps chicken. But please source your chicken wisely, making sure you know how that chicken was brought up. Because whatever the chicken eats is now become part of you.
And also, when you go to those places and you get those chicken breasts, you're like, well, I scored a great deal. They're huge.
Right.
Not the ones you really want to get.
Yeah. So what we were discussing earlier, and I was sharing an article that comes from a famous nutrition dietary source out of the UK, is that if you portion yourself an excessive amount of animal protein, there is a limit past which you no longer benefit per meal. So it makes sense to then use animal sources of protein as a condiment. And so that's what I promote. Like if you're going to eat an animal product, use it as a condiment and not as the main source of your caloric intake.
Can you break down that point, that 1 gram per, you said
It's 1 gram per kilo of ideal body weight.
okay, so why would that be?
Let me get my calculator.
So about half.
She's going to get out her calculator.
So what number do you want to use? What weight number do you?
Use 120.
Okay, so 120 divided by 2.2
Is your kilos.
is your kilos, so 54.5. And you want to know how much?
0.5?
0.8 or,
Yeah,
so,
just do 1 because she said 28.
so 54.5
Okay,
grams.
so about 55 grams of protein a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then I actually did some, for instance, I think I got here that trying to see. I did some calculations where it's actually on the bag. The lentils,
Oh,
yeah. So for like 1/4 cup of lentils, 50 grams, you're going to have in protein 11 grams. It's a lot of protein.
mm-hmm.
Yes.
So, I mean, my husband and I have gone through nutritionists and we've lost a little bit of weight.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so many different things being thrown at us,
Mhm.
like carbs, don't eat carbs, and don't eat this, and don't eat that. It's hard to understand what you're supposed to
Yes.
to eat
Yes.
to keep yourself healthy. We
Yes.
try to eat organic and buy the proper veggies and things like that.
I focus on you can eat carbs. Carbs are
are
not
good for you.
Not a villain. Your body needs carbohydrates, but let's focus on eating
Complex.
yes, less processed carbs, plant-based carbs, and also timing it right. Like when you go to bed, you don't need all the carbohydrates because that gives you energy. You're going to sleep. So I like to front load and have my carbohydrates at breakfast and lunch. And then in the evening, I'll have 3/4 my plate veggies and then a protein source. That's if I'm in weight loss mode. So maybe when I get into weight maintenance mode, I can add a little bit of a serving of a carb at nighttime if I'd like to. But with my clients, I see we get the best results when we are focusing on a complex carbohydrate for breakfast and lunchtime, and then not having that at dinner time. And making sure you're drinking enough water. Every metabolic reaction needs water. So so many of us are, I don't have time for water. I don't like the taste of water. But you really need to have water. It's like the oil in your body or in your engine to like lube things up. So, and it helps suppress your hunger hormone so you're not eating as much. So I recommend drinking at least 16 ounces of water before you eat anything and then approach your meal.
So a comment in reference to that is that you don't want to dilute your gut acids, your stomach acids, because they actually help you break down food. So hydration is often, although the lack of hydration is often a reason why people overeat. So try to consume a lot of water, and for an average woman you need about 90 ml. So you need a lot of water, and for a male, almost 120 milliliters of water a day, and that's without exercise. So preferably, in order to aid your digestion, don't dilute your food drinking the water as you eat. Drink your water in between your meals, and as you think you're hungry, first thing you do, let's say you're going home and you're going to have dinner after a day of work, you want to drink your bottle of water as you're driving home, preferably. Keep your eyes on the road, though. So that way, when you actually do sit at the table to eat your meal, you are not eating because you're thirsty. You're going to be mindful, and I think this is also something that unfortunately we do in part because perhaps we've lost the connection of sitting together at a meal and sharing our stories of the day, and now a meal is in front of a TV or some other source of distraction, and we're eating distractedly. So it is important, I think, to always introduce a question as we sit down to eat, or hopefully you're sitting down to eat, because a lot of people eat in their car, eat in the elevator, eat as they're walking from place to place, is an appreciation for the food, you know, right? And recognizing how many hands, how many people made it possible for you to have this nourishing food. And then really enjoying it. Taking the time to smell it, look at it, appreciate the beauty, put it in your mouth, move it around your mouth before you swallow it, and recognize that you don't eat to be full. You eat to be satiated.
You know what they say, you don't eat to live, you don't live to eat, you eat to live.
But the Okinawans in the Blue Zone, again, they had a saying, kind of like their prayer before they start to eat is to the 75%. So do not eat to feel full. Full is uncomfortable, right? It's uncomfortable. You don't want to become uncomfortable. You want to eat to be nourished. And nourishment only means you reach that point of satiety and learn to go, I don't need more now, and put it away.
Yeah.
Well, that's a perfect note to end on. So thank you. Thank you, Dr. Guerrero, so much. Thank you, Allison.
Thank you.
Thank you for everybody hanging with us. We're going to end our live stream now. And really, we appreciate everybody being here and coming. We'll hope to see you all again soon. Don't forget to do your surveys. And tip your waiters.
you.